going on, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of our podcast, Mass Media Hysteria. My name is Court. I will be your host for the duration. With me, as always, is Chris.
How's it going, everybody?
And down below, of course, is Andris.
Howdy.
And today we're going to be talking about, we got three topics today. First off, we're going to talk about the new Spider-Man No Way Home trailer that came out a few days ago. There's a lot to talk about. Andris just watched it. We watched him watch it on this Zoom call, and it was pretty hilarious.
It was pretty entertaining, to be honest.
Yeah. So we're going to do that. Then I was helping my girlfriend move this weekend, so I'm exhausted, and I didn't have time to watch King Richard. But Chris and Andris did. They're going to talk about King Richard, which is, of course, Will Smith as the father of the Williams sisters, the tennis players. So they're going to do a review for that. I guess you guys are going to spoil stuff?
There's not too much really to spoil. So we're going to go into details. So if you want to go in completely fresh, I'd say do that. But there's really not like surprising plot points or anything.
Spoilers, they become famous
yeah.
athletes.
Yeah. So yeah, there's not really major spoilers for this one. So
Turns out Serena did it.
Oh my God.
Goodness.
The whole time.
So yeah, they're going to talk about that. And then, of course, if you can't tell by Chris's background and Andres' shirt and my shirt, we're going to talk Ghostbusters Afterlife. Will be a full spoilers review. As I always say, we're not going to go beat for beat through the whole film, but we are going to go into details as well. So if you haven't seen that movie yet and you don't want to be spoiled, if you want, I have a non-spoilery review on my channel right now if you want to check that out, but that'll be our final topic of the day. Before we move forward, we just want to encourage you guys to drop a like on this video if you do enjoy the podcast. It just helps the video get out there to more people. It helps the channel grow. We appreciate it very much. And we'd love for you to comment down below. Tell us what you thought of these movies, what you think of the Spider-Man trailer. I do read all the comments. I respond when I can, so don't think they're going unread. And we also want to let you know that we do have audio versions of our podcast on certain places like Google Podcasts, Spotify, and now it's actually on Apple Podcasts too, which is cool. So if you don't have time to sit and watch a long-ass YouTube video, you can always go over there, check those out. Of course, subscribe, do all that. So we're going to jump right in today, and we're going to talk about the new Spider-Man No Way Home trailer. Now, I believe this movie comes out right around Christmas time. I think it's maybe like December 17th.
You got it.
I forget the name of the director off the top of my head, but it's the same guy who directed Far From Home as well as Homecoming.
His name is John Watts.
John Watts, thank you. I always get confused because the last guy was named Webb, which is just funny.
Yeah.
But there are people who are speculating that this is kind of going to be the end of the Sony Marvel sort of agreement. For those of you who don't know, Sony owns the rights to Spider-Man and all of Spider-Man's characters, Marvel having sold it to Sony years ago, or for film rights. But they made a deal with Marvel Studios back in the day for Civil War, so they would kind of work together. Sony is the distributor, so presumably this trailer and all other marketing is under the purview of Sony. But yeah, let's get into it. I'm gonna throw it to you, Andres, first, because you literally just watched this trailer.
Yeah, very fresh.
I didn't know it existed until 5 minutes ago.
So what did actually, before I ask you what you thought of the trailer, are you a fan of Homecoming or are you a fan of Far From Home? Have you been looking forward to this movie?
Oh yeah, they've been doing really great, especially because Spider-Man with Sony has been very hit or miss. But once Disney got involved, they got to get their guiding hand in there and kind of be like, okay, wait, don't do more of this, less of that. So, yeah, I was looking forward to it. Looked like a fun movie. This new trailer, though, holy crap, confirming things left and right.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
And Chris, what about you? Where do you stand here?
Yeah, I like this interpretation of Spider-Man. I really like Tom Holland as both Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I think that's just like perfect casting. And yeah, I loved Homecoming. I thought that Far From Home was fun, but it besides the ending, it felt very much just kind of like I hate this word, and I've talked about it when we talked about TV shows, but it felt like a filler episode. Okay. If that makes any sense. For most of it, it just kind of felt like another adventure, and then it has an actual, narrative changing ending, which I found fascinating. And Andres wants to say something.
Yes, it's very much in line with Disney's Marvel films, where the second film it's a bit of a slump. It's not terrible, but it's not great. But as you said, yeah, it's like stuff happens, yeah, and then like it hits you with this big revelation that's never happened in a Spider-Man film
yet. Yeah, no. So I am a fan of the series. So I was already looking forward to this third one, Spider-Man No Way Home, and then all of the the fan speculation and all the information that's been dropping that, well, it's confirmed that this is a multiverse movie. It's technically not confirmed by Sony or Marvel that both Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are coming back, but we're pretty damn certain at this point that they're going to make an appearance.
Tom Holland keeps denying it, as does Andrew Garfield. But
yes, but there's the big, for me, the big kind of like we let the cat out of the bag is the fact that there's these leaked photos, like a multiple at this point, that show them on set.
Wait, don't mean to derail the conversation. Did we watch the same trailer?
No, in the trailer they didn't show them.
Trailer 2.
Yeah, did not show them.
Wait, hang on. I gotta check something real quick.
Uh-oh.
Was this from Sony?
Because what did you see?
I saw Tom, or not. Well, yeah, I saw Tom Holland, but wait, this is coming from Screen Culture. Is that legit?
I don't know what that is.
Oh, quite possibly not. I don't know.
Let's see.
Huh.
Why did you see Andrew Garfield or
Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire were in the trailer I watched.
Specifically?
Okay.
So he was reacting to a fake trailer.
No.
Awesome.
Oh,
That's
no.
amazing.
That's amazing.
love
Like,
it.
holy shit, guys. Do you know that
whoa.
Hugh Jackman was in this?
What a professional podcast we run.
Oh
here.
my God.
No,
That's amazing.
Literally, Daredevil was in the trailer too. Like they were
Nope.
like handing the devil mask to. Okay.
That's funny.
Also not. So anyway,
Oh.
as I was gonna say that I am excited for this, and in the actual trailer they do not reveal that Daredevil's in it. They don't reveal that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire are in it, but it's pretty much confirmed. What I was gonna say was that there are leaked set photos that Sony is simultaneously being like, these are fake, don't worry about it, but then actively deleting them and
Right.
like making sure that people take them down. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, you wouldn't do that if these were fake.
Yeah,
Well,
that's damage control, and you don't exercise damage control if you don't have damage to control.
Yeah, like
Well,
go ahead. Sorry,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, because in the same token, there are like the same accounts that have had pictures deleted. They've left up like what are clearly fake photos of like, photoshopped or fan art and stuff. So it's like, okay, it's clear that they're singling out these specific photos and not just like anything that shows Garfield or Maguire.
Well, and the other thing too is, the basic premise that we've gotten for this movie from the couple trailers so far is that at the end of Far From Home, the world finds out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So in this film, he goes to Doctor Strange and says, "Hey, man, can you do a spell that will make everybody forget?" And as Doctor Strange is doing the spell, he's like, "But wait, don't make MJ forget, and don't make Ned forget." And then it fucks everything up, and it presumably creates the multiverse.
Mm-hmm.
And
now that you've said it out loud,
Mhm.
how does that cause a multiverse? That's so weird from one to the other. Like, make people forget, but make them remember. Oh, wait.
Because I think that, they don't fully go into it, but it's possible that like whatever the spell he's doing is maybe has some like time manipulation into it or something. So
Okay.
something wacky happens. Maybe they'll go into it like, well, the spell I did coincided with blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And also this is, from the show Loki, which is probably set around the same time as this.
Mhm.
They just flat out opened up a multiverse. So maybe there's like some connectivity that way.
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, but then in the trailers, at least the real ones, we do see Alfred Molina is back as Dr. Octopus from Spider-Man 2. We don't I don't think we actually see Willem Dafoe's face, but we hear his voice. We see Green Goblin from the first Spider-Man. We also see Jamie Foxx as Electro from, I believe it was Amazing Spider-Man 2. So it's like, are you going to bring in the villains from those other franchises and then not have Toby and Andrew? Like,
yeah.
I think it stands to reason they'll be in it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think that it's clear that they want to try and have like, it's going to be a surprise in the same way that there were some surprises at the end of Avengers Endgame, which admittedly they did a pretty good job of keeping a lot of things under lid. This they did not, though. Everybody just, it seems like everybody knows, and there's people who seem reputable that are just like have sources that are like, yeah, they're in it. And not going to say I'm not recommending this, but there was a plot leak that came out a few months back that this new trailer kind of confirmed. Like they had a whole thing where like the end set piece was going to take place on a construction around the Statue of Liberty that's going to have a Captain America shield. And I mean, that's just one of the details that it's like, oh, well, that's so specific. There's no way that like it's just a coincidence that also happened in this trailer. So my point being is that I think that the very first thought I had after watching the second trailer, which is a solid trailer, is I turned to my wife and was just like, just show them us. Like, we know that Toby and Andrew are in this. It's not a secret to anybody. And I would guarantee that you're not gonna lose people by showing them. And if anything, you're going to get more butts in seats day one if you showed a glimpse of them.
Nobody's going to be like, oh, they're in it. No, I'm not interested. Nobody's going to do that.
Yeah.
I do have to ask, though, guys, now that I'm not sure what was in my legit trailer here, was Iron Man, was there a Humvee with the glass?
Not that I recall.
Okay, what about Darth Vader?
Yes, he was. So he's part of the multiverse that's coming through. It's very exciting.
This is all it's all under Disney parent company.
Yeah,
right?
pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so there's been a lot of speculation. There's one shot in the trailer, which is presumably from the sort of final big fight. And I think in the one shot, you see Electro, you see Lizard from Amazing Spider-Man 1, and you see Sandman. And it's this kind of shot of like them all kind of flying at each other and Spider-Man swinging in. And it's this really, really wide shot with 3 bad guys on one side and 1 little Spider-Man on the other side. And like sort of down here, you see Lizard, and it looks like he probably gets punched in the face, but Spider-Man's like over here. So a lot of people are saying this is probably this cool big wide shot of 3 Spider-Men fighting 3 bad guys, and then they just digitally scrub the other 2 out of the shot.
Wow, that sounds like a great shot. I'm gonna have to watch this trailer sometime.
I'll send you the actual trailer. But yeah, that's what cracks me up, because Marvel's done this before with other trailers. They've done it for Spider-Man specifically, like the first, I think, Captain America Civil War trailer. They had the shot of the 2 teams running at each other, and Spider-Man wasn't in it at all. They just took him out. And so it's hilarious to see, especially like people that have like zoomed in and close up of the Lizard just getting absolutely walloped by nothing. He's just like in midair and then just goo. And it's like, I mean, if you're gonna edit him out, also get rid of that part, because it's just revealing.
Now, I have 2 things. Number 1, this is entering what I call the 3rd Spider-Man film curse, though.
Oh.
Well,
is it a curse if there's only been 1 third Spider-Man movie before this?
Well, but I think Amazing Spider-Man, I think, was supposed to have a 3rd one.
Yeah.
And then it didn't. So maybe that's what you mean?
It does tie into it. I forgot that there was, but I mean, there is a Raimi 3rd Spider-Man, and it is relevant to the point, along with the 2nd Amazing Spider-Man film. This is Sony making a very big risk in bringing too many villains in. How many are we talking about already that we've like that are out there that we know of? And then it's like, oh God, they pile on too many villains in films after a while, and that can be very detrimental. Hopefully they will have the rudder steered in the correct direction to make a good film. It's a bit of a risk. The other thing, I mentioned this last time we talked about Spider-Man, this new trailer, I kind of wish they would have separated this from the multiverse concept itself, because this whole idea of Spider-Man dealing with everyone knowing who he is, that's such an interesting film premise, but they're like sweeping it under the rug within the first 20 minutes of this film, it seems like. And it's like, missed opportunity. Gonna be good though. Don't get me wrong. It's gonna be a good film, but it's like, I kind of wish they would have separated the two. I feel like the multiverse holds well enough on its own to be its own film.
That's interesting.
I will say this too. Like I understand that they're bringing the villains from the other franchises in, but you want to talk about missed opportunities. You could have changed Goblin's mask, man. He looked so silly, and
that Power Ranger suit.
There's a Weird Al. Weird Al has a parody of Piano Man, and it's sling us a web, you're the Spider-Man.
Nice.
There's a line about Green Goblin, and it's like it's something like, he's wearing that dumb Power Rangers mask, but he's scarier without it on, which is true, because Willem Dafoe is a terrifying individual when he wants to be. But I understand that you want to make it look like that. I'm hoping maybe he'll get a suit change, because it just looks so goddamn goofy.
I think there might be, because people have scrubbed through every frame of this trailer, and there's a shot later on that shows someone in a glider flying by and throwing stuff, and they zoom in, and it just looks like he's just a normal guy wearing a hood and goggles. So he's not wearing a mask. So he's still wearing the kind of the green Power Ranger suit, but hopefully they'll just go with Willem Dafoe's face, because he's so expressive, and you just choose the scenery with this character that it's like, to take the mask off, just show me Dafoe.
Right.
Or maybe, just maybe, they're gonna bring back that horrible Green Goblin from Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Oh yeah, they're like, surprise! It's what was that kid's name? What was that guy?
Dane DeHaan, I think.
Dane DeHaan.
Dane DeHaan, yeah.
You guys remember Dane DeHaan? What's he doing now?
I never saw Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Keep it that way.
That's what I've heard. I've seen him in, I think, 2 things. He was in that movie Chronicle, which was all right. I didn't love it, but it was all right. And then he was in a couple years ago, maybe 3 years ago, he's in a movie. I'm blanking on the director's name. It was the guy who did the first couple Pirates movies, I think.
Gore Verbinski.
Gore Verbinski. Yeah, he did a movie called A Cure for Wellness. And Dane DeHaan was the main character. And that movie was like the first, I don't know, most of the movie, Dane DeHaan was good in it. Most of the movie, I was totally on board. It kind of had like a Shutter Island feel, like you didn't know what was going on. Is this guy going crazy, or is it like a conspiracy or whatever? And then you get the reveal at the end, and it was just like, what?
Yeah.
Oh, go fuck yourself. Like it got so stupid. Rarely have I left a movie that angry, because I was like legitimately loving it until, I'm going to spoil it. The bad guy rips his face off, and he's like 1,000-year-old Duke with a burned face like Red Skull. And he was trying to like mate with his own daughter to preserve the bloodline. And I was like, what? It was Shutter Island for like an hour and a half. And that. Anyway, the point is,
wow, this sounds amazing. I might have to watch it.
Definitely going to check it out.
It's incredibly well shot. I'll tell you that. Watch the trailer. There are shots in the trailer where you fucking jaw will be on the floor. But anyway, that ending really pissed me off. So sorry, I kind of derailed the conversation there.
No, it's fine.
I did have a thought too. There is a line in this trailer that does suggest, again, or it lends credence to the idea that Toby or Andrew or both will be in it, because there's a moment where Doc Ock, we don't see who he's talking to, but earlier on in the trailer, you see him go like, "Hello, Peter." But then later in the trailer, you see him go, "You're not Peter Parker." Now, granted, could be clever editing. It could be like someone came up behind, like he was supposed to meet Spider-Man at the corner of 5th and Main. And then the person's like, "I'm here." And he turns around and it's not Peter Parker. It's Doctor Strange. He's like, "You're not Peter Parker." But I think it's like my guess is that he sees Tom Holland with his mask off, and he's like, "You're not the Peter that I know."
Yeah.
So I think that lends credence to the idea anyway.
Yeah, there's little hints throughout. Again, I think that If I was in charge of marketing, I would have been like, look who the fuck is in this movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Go see it. Because again, I feel like just knowing that they're in it doesn't spoil it, because it's
No.
like you want to see it. So
Yeah.
like you saying, hey, they're in it. It's like, all right, cool. I want to see that. You know, it's not like, oh, well, the surprise is ruined.
It's not just that. It's the idea of seeing 3 Spider-Men fighting together against enemies. That's so cool. Like, oh, I want to see that.
Yeah.
That's just peak comic book silliness that
Exactly.
People want to see. But yeah,
Well, now-
I'm excited for it.
Well, now, Chris, you mentioned that like Marvel has a history of doing this with Spider-Man, or even, the Infinity War trailer. There's that charge in Wakanda, and we see Hulk just like running, and Hulk was not in the movie, really.
Yeah.
It's Bruce in the Hulkbuster suit, but again, like those were Marvel movies. Marvel was distributing them. Marvel was in charge of the marketing. This, like I said, presumably all the marketing is under the purview of Sony here. So do we think that Sony just sort of took note from Marvel? Do you think maybe there was, because I do think that Sony holds all the cards when it comes to the marketing. Do you think maybe the people at Marvel, maybe Kevin Feige, went to Sony and said, like, can you please not spoil this? Like, and maybe they made a bit of a deal, or what do you think?
Look, I mean, if they're already this much in bed together as far as like co-producing a film, it stands to reason that there's also some communication, more than some, when it comes to the marketing. I mean, because it does very much like fall under the purview of the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, it's using one of their main characters as well, Doctor Strange. So I can imagine that it wasn't just like, Kevin Feige produced this movie and then it's like, fuck it, I can't look. All right, everybody else handle it from here on out. I'm sure there were just some discussions about like, show this, don't show that, yada yada.
Right.
Go
ahead.
I think it'd be hilarious if, like, towards the end of the film, like, this kid shows up and he's like, "Hi, I'm Miles Morales."
I'd be stoked.
And then like it ends and it's like, that's gonna be in the MCU from now on. Like, that, just not even like building it up, just like,
yeah. No, it might. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they do something like that.
Because I mean, they are saying that Tom Holland is going to be,
potentially,
potentially. Yeah. So
yeah, I'd say I'd be down for that if like the next couple Spider-Man movies focus on one Miles Morales or someone other than Peter Parker.
Yeah, they've done enough Parker films, God knows.
Yeah, exactly.
Although I kind of, particularly with Spider-Verse being a thing, like the animated movie, I kind of don't imagine that Miles Morales would have a future at Marvel. I think that would be a Sony property.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Very true.
We'll wait and see. Okay, so we're going to move on. You guys are going to review King Richard. Now, this came out in theaters and it was also on streaming, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, HBO Max.
HBO Max, okay. So I don't really know much about it. I know that it stars Will Smith, and like I said, it's about the father of the Williams sisters.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else of note in it, or?
So essentially it stars Will Smith as the father, Richard Williams. He's the father of Serena and Venus, who, if you don't know, they are like some of the greatest tennis players in the world ever.
And if you don't know, now you know.
Yeah. So there's a few like people that you might recognize throughout. I'd say the other biggest kind of co-star is John Bernthal, who comes in about halfway through the movie, and a really
isn't he rocking like a porn stash or something?
Yeah, yes. He's got a porn stash. He's got great luscious hair, and he's definitely playing against type. I mean, because he usually plays like these really tough macho guys, and he plays this coach of theirs. But he's really kind of like a goofball. Not a goofball, but he's just like, hey, how's it going? You want a burger? And it's like, all right, dude. But besides that, like I said, you might recognize some character actors here and there. But it really is Will Smith's film from start to finish. So, yeah, as Court was mentioning, King Richard is based on a true story. And it's about the kind of the formative years in Venus and Serena's career as becoming tennis greats. So they start off very young, and it kind of shows the struggles that the family went through and that Richard Williams went through in order to get these kids to where they are today. So before we go into more of kind of like the story and kind of individual parts that we thought about it, Andres, off the top, have you heard? Were you aware of this movie before we recommended it? And what did you think about it overall?
I don't know. I don't you guys just suggest movies. I'm like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't know it existed 5 minutes before I saw it. I did see the actual film though. This wasn't a fan trailer this time.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Richard Williams fan fiction.
yes.
Amazing.
And Toby Maguire showed up.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Who would have thought?
But yeah, no, I had no idea what it was about. But you know, I had the day off yesterday. I'd gone and seen Ghostbusters, had the night to myself.
Mhm.
And I said to these guys, I said, yeah, Chris, you can persuade me to see this. I will absolutely go. Because, you know, I don't usually watch films like this. So it's out of my element typically, but I kind of like that. It's like take a break from all the crazy ray guns and zombies and shit, you know?
Yeah.
But no, I very much enjoyed the film.
Oh, right on. Cool. Yeah, this was a movie, and I said in our chat that I was planning on seeing it because it's getting really good reviews or solid reviews, and there's already early Oscar buzz talk. Mostly for Will Smith. This is probably also going to get nominated for Best Picture. I don't see it winning, but it just seems like that kind of film.
Mm-hmm.
But going into it, I wasn't really excited. Like I knew before we agreed that we're going to watch it, I was like, I'll check this out sometime between now and whenever the next Oscars are. So that was, several months.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I wasn't super excited is because the trailers just kind of made it seem like the kind of Oscar bait sports drama that we've seen a dozen times before that was really popular in the 90s and early 2000s. And after seeing it, I will say it is that, but it has enough more going for it that kind of elevates it above it.
Yeah.
This is definitely an entertaining film. It's a well-made film.
Mm-hmm.
It's not amazing, and it's not like one of my favorites of the year. But there's enough good about it that made it more enjoyable than just this paint by numbers film that I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it's not Hollywood about it. It's he's a flawed character, and you see these flaws occur through the film. I mean, you see him get the shit kicked out of him by a couple of gangsters at one point. They don't gloss things over.
Dude, there were side note, it's been a bit since I've seen in a movie a portrayal of 90s like LA gangsters, and it was kind of cracking me up because this is set mostly in the early 90s, and it was just like I was just getting like Boys in the Hood flashbacks. I was like, oh yeah, this was a whole subgenre of just this kind of gangster.
Absolutely.
Well, and I just looked it up because I was curious. So apparently it was directed by Ronaldo Marcus Green, who last year, I think the movie actually came out fairly recently, but maybe a few months back, but I saw it at TIFF last year. It was a movie called Good Joe Bell with Marky Mark and a couple other people. I think Gary Sinise was in it, which is cool because we haven't seen that guy in a while.
Great that he's getting work.
Yeah, good for him.
But yeah, pretty good movie. So also kind of a biopic. So
yeah. And speaking of the director, that's again, it's the direction in this is what I would consider solid. There's nothing really flashy about it. There's no real like signature behind it. Okay. It's very kind of matter of fact. Like again, that's not bad, but it's just like, yeah, the scenes are shot competently. They start with wide shots to establish, and they get into kind of medium shots, and they just let the characters go. So it's
very utilitarian filmmaking.
Yeah,
because you're right. There's no flashy shots, but it's not a boring film. It just presents the events.
Yeah, and it's so because the direction's just kind of takes a step back and lets the characters breathe. It really does rest on the shoulders of Will Smith, and he essentially the character of Richard Williams in this. He's married and has 5 daughters. 2 of them are Serena and Venus, and so you see him for most of the first half interacting with his wife. They have some struggles, and interacting with the daughters, but most of the daughters get kind of sidelined or forgotten, obviously because they didn't go on to be two of the greatest tennis players in the world. But that's pretty much the first kind of half of the film, is that this is a family that lives in Compton, California. And in Compton, even to this day, but especially in the 90s when this is set, was a very impoverished area. It was a ghetto. And you see that from the very beginning, that they live in kind of a shabby house. Again, it's a small house with 5 kids, and the 5 kids share one room. The mom works days as a nurse, and he works nights as a security guard. And every day, so he goes to at night, he goes to be a security guard, and then every day he wakes up and he makes sure that his daughters, they eat breakfast, they take care of themselves, they go to school, and they train. Every day he's taking them out to the tennis court to train Serena and Venus, because one of the big themes of the film is that Richard Williams has this plan. He's a man that grew up during segregation, and he talks about this throughout the film, that he grew up in a time where, just white men and black men, or anybody, white people and black people, they did not mix. And he tells a story of where he got the ever-living snot beat out of him by a group of white men when he was just a kid, just because he accidentally touched one of them. And so he's a man that had no opportunities, and all he wants in the world is to make sure that his daughters do have that opportunity. So so right there, that's the emotional core of it, is just this man who, any other person by that stage, 50s, kind of out of shape, got a bad knee, working a crap job, they're probably considering that they're already over the hill and that their life is just gonna, but he's like, no, my daughter's not gonna have that. And that drive is both the best thing about him and also can be the worst thing about him.
Absolutely. That was the interesting thing about the whole story, is like, they weren't bad people. They were good people who took care of their kids and made sure they were safe and, fed and took them out and everything. But at the same time, he is a flawed character whose stubbornness and there were scenes that make you grab your head and go, what are you doing? Because later on, he's getting presented these opportunities, and he's like, it's maddening but compelling, because you're like, oh my God. Because once again, it's not a Hollywood story. It's not perfect what happens along the way. But
yeah, no, I completely agree. There's moments throughout where you really are just like cringing and just like, oh my God, because he's so overbearing. And again, and it doesn't shy away about that, in the sense that it shows how, his determination is kind of what got their foot in the door. So on one hand, it's good. Like, they show him every day going to these coaches, because they're an impoverished family again. And tennis, let's face it, even now, is a rich person sport. It really is. Like, if you want to get into it, like, competitively, it costs so much money just to go to tournament to tournament. So Richard was going from, coach to coach to coach to coach, trying to pitch to, like, look, I got these 2 star athletes in the making. We need a coach. We need a sponsor. And everyone is just kind of, slamming the door in his face. And so his determination in that regard is admirable. But then there's so many instances later on where he's too controlling, where he doesn't, he stops treating people as though it's like a family unit. And he stops treating Venus and Serena as individuals, and more like, father knows best. We're not going to take this deal. Oh, you want to go play in some tournaments to practice? No, you're not going to do that. You're going to do what I say. And it creates this friction, both with his his wife, and with his daughters, and the other people along the way. Because there's a couple other coaches, John Bernthal included, who really do have Serena and Venus's best interest at heart, but you can't tell Richard what to do. He has his mind set, and it's aggravating.
Yeah, it really is, because it's like he's got the drive, but then he approaches things wrong at times and gets offended, and you're like, oh my God, no.
Yeah.
Because it's like money is thrown on the table, and he like walks away from a couple deals, and it's
Yeah, and not only that, but there's a big contention throughout a lot of the second half of the film, and this is all true. This is documented. I went to go check it up after, but Normally the trajectory for tennis stars, and I wasn't too familiar with this, but if they're this young, kind of these prodigies, they get a coach and then they start playing in, what are they called? The juniors? Is that what they call them?
It was the juniors, yeah.
Yeah. So essentially it's, as it sounds, it's these tournaments that younger people play in before they become pro athletes. And you got to play in them usually to, build up your stats, to get recognized, yada, yada. And I call him King Richard Williams refused to let his daughters play in that. And it's simultaneously for noble reasons, but then it becomes controlling because his initial thought process was, I want my daughters to be children in the sense that I want them to go to school. I want them to go to Disney World. I want them to have fun. Because he looks to other real world characters, like other tennis stars that started very young and get burnt out.
Yeah.
I forget her name, but this was a true story as well of a young tennis woman who was like, she started at like 15, but by 18 she got arrested for like drug charges and stuff because she'd already reached like superstardom and her life just kind of crashed.
Yeah.
So I guess it's the same thing you see with like child actors a lot of the time, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just this meteor. I can't say that. They skyrocket to fame way too early and then just kind of burn out. So he wanted to shelter them from that, but as it goes on, like years pass, and his daughters, especially Venus, is like, I want to play. Like, you're not, taking my life into consideration. You have this plan, but you're not asking me. And she's not wrong. They show, they in real life, they both became pros, Venus and Serena, by the age of 14. And, they didn't crash and burn. But yeah, it's, again, that's that conflict of like, there's these things that Venus specifically wants to do to further her career. And her dad is just like, nope, not even going to talk about it. Don't worry about it. And you're just like, dude, just listen to your daughter.
Yeah, like when you've got these like pros, these coaches who are like, no, they've got to play these matches, and it's just like, dude, I almost wanted to scream at the screen, like, you don't know what you're talking about, dude. These are professional coaches.
Yeah, it gets really frustrating because John Bernthal's character is like one of the most he plays one of the most well-respected coaches in the industry.
Yeah,
and he signs this unbelievable deal with them where John Bernthal will coach the kids for free. Not only that, he'll bring the family from Compton over to Florida, give them a house. They'll have, for free, all this amazing stuff. And Richard is still thinking that he's calling the shots. And it's like, dude, and it's just frustrating because like, dude, this guy is giving you a once in a lifetime opportunity. And you're just like, nah, I'll figure it out by myself. And you're like, just stop.
And it's horrifying because it's like, as you're watching these events unfold and you're watching this man's stubbornness play in, you're like, oh my God, they could so like just get dropped right then and there. Like, it's so anxiety inducing because you're like, oh my God, stop. So
so that's kind of like the main tension that you get throughout. And it does end in as a lot of sports dramas do. It ends with a big match and they kind of hype it up. And I'm not going to we won't spoil what happens. And again, it's a true story. But when it comes to these sort of sports films, it's either, a great victory or a noble defeat. And I won't say which one it is, but I still feel like this handled it pretty well, even though it's like, you knew going in that it was going to be a coin toss of which way it was going to end, because I didn't know the true story about this specific match. But as you were mentioning, Andris, the film does, for the most part, a good job of kind of subverting the schmaltzy kind of Hollywood biopic. There really isn't like these grand scenes of dramatic monologues, crying. Like there's some monologues, people get emotional, but there's not like the speech of like, you're gonna be the best in the world, and they're crying. And even at the end, when it's at that final match, it does a good job of kind of showing the highs, the lows, everything in between. And you're invested. Like there's something that happens in it that it's just like, come on, it does a good job of kind of touching on the underdog aspect that we all kind of relate to.
Absolutely. yeah.
Okay. But so to kind of wrap it up a bit, so we can move on to Ghostbusters, because again, there's not too much like as far as story to spoil.
Yeah.
Do you have any complaints about it, Andres? Because I actually have a few to critique it on.
My only one, I mean, and this isn't the actor's fault because it's John Bernthal, but knowing it's John Bernthal under that luxurious mustache and tiny little tennis shorts,
They're so short.
They are so short. And watching him be this little, like, I don't want to call him a wiener boy, but I mean, he's not, he's not the Punisher, but knowing he could be the Punisher, I kept being like, it was a little distracting because it's like he's getting pushed around by Will Smith, his character. And I'm like, yeah, but the Punisher just punched a hole through this guy. But it's not distracting, though. He does do a well job. I really had no complaints.
Okay. Some thoughts that I had is that I felt like this was a little too long in the tooth. I don't have an issue with long films in general. I like a lot of long films, but I felt like this movie had such a good pace for the first half. And then there's a point where they move to Florida and it kind of drags a bit. And I think that they could have kind of tightened up the training aspect of it a bit.
The tricky part with that is the fact that, I mean, I can mention it. They spent 3 years not playing any matches.
Yeah.
And to portray 3 years of not playing any matches, that's tricky because they did nothing for 3 years. So it's kind of a tough situation. Like, how do you convey that without just glossing it over with like a title card that says 3 years later?
Yeah, no, that's definitely fair. I just felt like the time that was used there seemed to be like a bit of kind of some cyclical dialogue or cyclical scenes of like, hey, Richard, we should do this. They should play in juniors. No, I don't want them to play in juniors. Okay, next scene. Hey, they should play in juniors. No, I don't want to play in juniors. And it's like, you could have trimmed maybe like 1 or 2 of those just to kind of get this to closer to like a neater 2 hours.
Yeah, because it's like they've established the problems more than once. So I agree with you. They could have cut at least one of those out.
Yeah. The other thought I had is that although it does a good job of kind of steering away from the more schmaltzy kind of Oscar bait material that you see in a lot of these types of films, I wouldn't say it's completely devoid of it. It doesn't get schmaltzy, but it is predictable. Like, there was never a moment where I was really like, oh, what's gonna happen? It does kind of follow the certain beats that these sports biopics follow. So it doesn't really fully transcend this subgenre for me. It's more like this is a good version of this kind of sports genre, sports biopic, but it doesn't reinvent the wheel. It doesn't really add too much new to it.
Agreed.
So that's why I'm like, I don't think this is great, but it is entertaining. Like it's entertaining. Will Smith is really great in this. At first I was a little worried about the voice. I was worried that it was gonna, because he does like an affectation, and I was worried that it was gonna be like, is this gonna be cartoony? But he hones it in, and there's actually quite a bit of subtlety to his performance.
Mentioning that, I was surprised actually, because you can, with some actors you can tell when it's that actor. I couldn't see Will Smith in this portrayal. He really did become King Richard.
There's no Will Smith isms. He doesn't call anybody bitch, or he doesn't say any, like,
he doesn't welcome anyone to Earth.
So I thought it was great.
You know what's weird about that though? I was actually just having this conversation the other day. That was like, it was so memed, the whole welcome to Earth thing, and everybody knew what it is. And I don't know if it's like a Mandela effect kind of thing, but if you go back and watch the scene, he very clearly says Earth. There's no F to be had. I don't know how it became something.
Maybe that's the Canadian version. Maybe. They were like, it's say TH.
They wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
No, that's definitely a Mandela effect thing, because I watched that recently too, and I was like, he very clearly says Earth, but whatever. But yeah, so overall, I would say I would recommend this. If you see the trailer, if you're kind of interested in these true story biopics, I think you'd really dig this. I wouldn't say that at this moment, I wouldn't say that Will Smith is a lock to win, but I would say that I'm pretty certain he's at least going to get a nomination for Best Actor for this performance, and I think it's well deserved. So yeah, I'd recommend King Richard.
I also would recommend King Richard, especially because I don't like sports except for robot combat. But I
Which
like
is
this film.
the most ultimate of sport.
The most ultimate of sport. But for real though, like it's a movie where it's like you cannot give a shit about sports, and this is a compelling story because you're watching how, you know, I'll admit it, athletes, as much as I don't watch sports, they go through a lot to get where they get.
Yeah.
And this really gives you insight into what, you know, Serena and Venus went through to become these iconic athletes that they are. So it's a very fascinating film. Definitely check it out.
Yeah.
I watched it on HBO Max. Once again, like I said in my Dune review, for some reason this movie is ridiculously dark in HBO Max. Have your remote handy.
What is up with that? I had to
crank up the brightness.
I had to. Okay, this is random. Sorry, I'm not going to beleaguer this point, but that was true. As soon as it started, I had to adjust my settings, which I normally don't. Like I have my settings on lock. It's fucking dark. I don't get it. That's probably not the movie's fault because I remember watching trailers like on my computer. Everything looked kind of more sunny, more bright.
Yeah, no, I had the same problem with Dune, so it very much is the streaming app. For some reason, they've got it set on midnight.
How weird, man. Anyway, yeah. Last thing I'll say, this is not an important thing, but one thing that surprised me is that this is King Richard's story. Richard Williams is the definite star, Will Smith. But it also mostly focuses on Venus. And Serena kind of gets sidelined, and I'm like, they're both amazing athletes. Like, why did they just pick like Venus? Because at the end, it's really like Venus's moment. It's like she's in the big match, and Serena's just kind of like there.
I noticed that too.
I thought that was odd.
Yeah, no, because they are both very well known. So it is weird because you're like, well, I mean, it's their story. You should, you know, because they do show how like Venus was favored by some coaches. So like her mom was teaching Serena how to do things. And her, like they started bringing it up because she started just going off and doing her own tournaments when they were doing the juniors tournaments.
Yeah.
But it is weird though how they kind of
dropped it. Yeah. They showed a bit, but then like the third act, it's like, fuck it, this is Venus's show.
It's the Venus show, yeah, and it's like
that's all right. She's doing fine. They're both like two of the best athletes. Yeah. Anyway, so there it is, King Richard. Court, you ready to join back in on a discussion?
I think so. Andris, well, I guess I'll say we're gonna go to Ghostbusters Afterlife, but Andris, you said you wanted to introduce it here.
Oh,
no, it was Chris.
Oh, was it Chris? Oh, sorry, my bad.
No, this is a very special. So, all right, everybody, the main topic of discussion today is Ghostbusters, as you can see, and wouldn't you know it, we have a new Ghostbusters reboot. So this Ghostbusters movie takes place in 2016, and it stars Melissa McCarthy as. Oh wait, no, hold on. I'm sorry, I mixed up my notes. Okay, no. So this is a different Ghostbusters reboot. Okay, so new Ghostbusters reboot. Forget about the other one. Okay, so this one, Ghostbusters, the second reboot, a fantastic movie. You know, it stars Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, and it's this great thing of kind of blending the old with the new. Oh wait, hold on. Sorry, So I'm getting a report that's Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Okay, I apologize. What is this movie?
I thought we were seeing House of Gucci.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So Lady Gaga is great as the ghost. Okay. No. Bad jokes aside, this is Ghostbusters Afterlife, a 2021 film. It is the fourth Ghostbusters movie. Technically, Ghostbusters 3 following the original timeline, but it also sort of retcons Ghostbusters 2. So this is Ghostbusters 2. Whatever, man. It follows essentially, and I'm gonna mix up their names. I had to bring it up. But it follows Carrie Coon's character and her two children, one played by Finn Wolfhard and the other played by McKenna Grace. And they have to move to, what is the town? What is the city?
Somerville.
Yeah. And I don't think this is a spoiler, but early on, it's revealed that they are the descendants of Egon Spengler from the very first Ghostbusters. And for most of the film, early on, it kind of follows the kids as they adjust to a new town and make new friends, but then they find some spooky, ghosty inhabitants of their own. Adventure begins. So before we go into it any further, Court, first off, what were your expectations going into this film, and then overall, what would you say about Ghostbusters Afterlife?
I was really, really looking forward to this movie. We talked about it on the show in the past when people first started seeing it, and it was getting a lot of really positive feedback. Really liked the cast. I thought it was cool that Jason Reitman was directing, taking over for his dad Ivan. And I wasn't terribly enthused with the 2016 Ghostbusters. I didn't find it very funny. I found it very kind of, I don't want to say lazy, that's not the right word, but it was just, it wasn't honed, like it was like a lot of improv. It felt like they didn't really stick to the script, and I didn't find myself laughing that much anyway. And I love the original. I don't think Ghostbusters 2 is all that great, but I do have like a soft spot in my heart for it.
Yeah.
And the idea that this was sort of picking up after the first two, and I was unclear in this movie whether or not it was retconning Ghostbusters 2, like unless I missed something, it didn't.
It was kind of, I don't think that there was like something specific. But I think that there were certain comments that made it seem as though, I guess spoilers kinda, but essentially they were only talking about the one incident in New York in 1984. And it seemed like after that, it was like, oh, well, then they disbanded not too long after that. So it was more like retconning by omission. Like they didn't like flat out contradict it, but it was just sort of like they didn't really mention it. The only,
and I had someone in my comment section on the spoiler-free review point this out, and it's a good catch. And we are going spoilers now, full spoilers. Okay, all the surviving original Ghostbusters are in this film. But when we first see Ray, played by Dan Aykroyd, he's working at the bookshop Ray's Occult, which I don't think we ever see in the first movie. That's in part 2.
Oh,
so
okay.
That is one connection. I mean, it's pretty loose.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was really looking forward to this movie. I went and saw it on Friday, and I'll say that I did enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it as much as I was hoping I would. But I did like it. What about you, Andris? Where were you standing on this one?
Cautiously optimistic, especially after 2016. I know I kept saying Malignant was the film of the year.
Oh, really?
Ladies and gentlemen, Malignant has been dethroned.
Oh my goodness.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. Right on. That high of praise. Interesting. I didn't know where you're gonna land on it, because you just messaged us saying like, oh, there's a lot to talk about. And usually in my mind, that doesn't sound good.
I like throwing you boys off with these hot takes.
Yeah, we haven't discussed this at all up until this point, so I don't know where these guys stand. What about you, Chris? Were you looking forward to this one? What did you think of it?
Yeah, so I like Ghostbusters. The first film I saw kind of late. I mean, I was like maybe 12 or so it wasn't old. I mean, I was still young, but I was old enough that I wasn't young enough to make it this big nostalgic kind of thing for me, if that makes any sense. So I like it. And I even think the second one has some merit, even though it's kind of a retread of the first one. I also wasn't a fan of the 2016 one. I just felt like the humor didn't match at all with the kind of humor from the first. So going into this one, like Andris, I would say it was cautiously optimistic. And I'd say for the most part, it's pretty good. There's a lot to like about this movie. I think that it kind of stumbles for me in the third act, and it kind of starts feeling a bit more pandering in the third act and feels too familiar for me. I think that's mostly highlighted because so much of the first half of the film didn't do that. It felt like really fresh and new for most of it, and then it was just kind of like, remember the first Ghostbusters? I'm like, yeah, Yeah, I do. Here they are. I'm like, it's not just that, but it's here they are, and they're fighting the same villains. It's Gozer and yeah, all that, and so many callbacks, and it was entertaining. It wasn't like I was rolling my eyes, but it just kind of felt a bit of like this is the same ending as the last one. Oh, sorry, as the first one, I should say.
I did roll my eyes pretty hard at one moment in this movie, and it was a nostalgia moment. And I said in the other review, I didn't think this movie got as precious about nostalgia as I was expecting it to. There's a lot in there, but I thought it was going to be like just constant, and it kind of wasn't. I actually think the 2016 Ghostbusters is more precious about the nostalgia than this one is. But there is one moment in the movie where Finn Wolfhard and McKenna Grace get arrested, and McKenna Grace, who is fantastic in this movie, we'll get to that. But she's like, I want my phone call, and the cop gives her the phone. He's like, who are you gonna call? And I was like,
oh my god,
like I knew you knew it was coming anyway.
Yeah,
but it just that was brutal. I was
it's
come on.
We all know the tagline.
Hey guys, guess who laughed out loud in the theater?
Oh my god, this guy! That joke was written specifically for him.
He said it, and I was like, "Ha!" I pointed at the screen.
I understood that reference,
and it was it was a full theater, but nobody else reacted. And I was like, "Okay, I will carry this joke."
You were the Leonardo DiCaprio meme.
Yeah, they did the thing. That's funny. I'm gonna carry this movie going experience for you guys.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say that. Yeah, I mean, from the top, for the most of the film, it focuses on the new characters. The mom, played by Carrie Coon, who's good in this.
She's not given a whole lot to do.
Yeah, she's kind of mom in this. Paul Rudd, who is always great, and I think that he fits in with this very well. Kind of his earnest sense of humor. He plays like this very eager like teacher / scientist. Like he seems more wide-eyed and excited about all the ghostly happenings, even more so than the kids do. Yeah. So he's charming. McKenna Grace is terrific. Like the first Ghostbusters is very much an ensemble, and this is too, but it is also, it feels much more like it's focused entirely on McKenna Grace's character.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, but it's carried by McKenna Grace, and it's technically carried by Harold Ramis's character.
Yeah.
It's Egon's film, even though he's not in it for most of it.
Yeah, right. And to get into spoilers, Egon is in this technically. He starts off, I mean, we start off with the film with seeing kind of a flashback, and you don't see his face. Yeah. But then later on, you do see kind of it wasn't fully CGI. It seemed like a bit of CGI mixed with like old footage.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what they did.
It looked pretty good though. It didn't look bad.
I did read up about it. They were using like archival footage that was unused from Ghostbusters and stuff like that, and they obviously aged him to look more now. They also used a stand-in, so it's kind of like a Rogue One Leia sort of deal where they just put someone's face on.
Looked better than that. Looked better than that.
2021 has apparently been the year of really good bringing back dead acters. And to say that it sounds like I'm saying that flippantly, but in Halloween Kills, Corey, I don't know if you watched that.
No,
not yet.
Okay, I forgot. Neither of you guys have seen it. No spoilers there, but Donald Pleasance, they bring back Donald Pleasance in it, and it's a mixture of just a look-alike in makeup and maybe a bit of digital like adding to it, and it's flawless. Like they have fucking close-ups of him, and I'm like, holy shit, is that Donald Pleasance? Nope. And so here it was also like, it doesn't have the weird kind of sheen that like a Rogue One had, or some of the Marvel movies where they like de-age someone,
or like Tron Legacy with Jeff Bridges.
Oof. But yeah, so you're right, is that, I mean, McKenna Grace is the main character, and she carries the film, but it is also the kind of the spirit of Egon, and
literally
the spirit of Egon and the memory of Harold Ramis kind of carries the film, which I thought was interesting. I think that it's mostly not to say this cynically, but it's like it's mostly done because Harold Ramis is the only original Ghostbusters that has passed. Because if you watch the original, again, it's very much an ensemble. It's not the Egon Spengler movie.
Yeah.
No.
And so it just kind of, I don't know. I mean, it didn't bother me, but that was just something I noticed, that it's like, I really feel like they're putting this much emphasis on Egon because Harold Ramis unfortunately passed.
I definitely could see that. I mean, there were molds, spores, and fungus down in the lower bunker.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's like to keep it on the Egon thing. So basically, this family moves to Oklahoma because, and they don't mention their Egon's grandchildren right away, but we find out Carrie Coon, very estranged from her father. I think her name was Callie, very estranged from her father. He kind of left when she was little, was never around, but he leaves her this house and they're flat broke. So they go and they're going to try and clean it up and maybe sell it. And very quickly, we're introduced to McKenna Grace's character, whose name is Phoebe. And she's very much, she makes it her own, but she's very much an Egon kind of character. She's whip smart. She's fascinated by science.
I am very glad that she was who she was and she did what she did, because watching this kind of a story unfold of somebody scientifically, because I mean, this ties back to Dan Aykroyd's original script and his fascination with the paranormal. Watching somebody scientifically explore the paranormal, it's fascinating.
Well, particularly because she says early on in the movie she does not believe in ghosts. Like,
and her calm demeanor, and she doesn't overact and react to things. It's refreshing and it's fascinating.
But so early on in the movie, she starts sort of exploring the house, and she tells something's weird. She's got a chessboard in her room, and she wakes up one day and a pawn has been moved, and she's like, "Well, that's curious." So she moves a pawn, and then the next day there's another move, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, so there's a ghost in the house." And then she's exploring around the basement, and she starts finding old like experiments, whatever, and the lights are moving and showing her where to go next and whatever. I'm like, "Oh, okay, gotcha. It's Egon trying to communicate with his granddaughter." And that kind of stuff I thought was really cute. Like, I thought that was really lovely.
I was glad that they didn't show him until way later, because they easily could have been like, "Oh, there's Egon. He's a ghost now." But no, there was just subtle, which is a tie back to the very first film and not to the 2016 film. It's subtle at first, you know. A pawn gets moved. There's a stack of books over there. It's not, oh, it's blowing up and shit's crazy. Which props to Sony. Once again, they finally understand what people want, because 2016 was a vomit of lights and this is more subdued.
I mean, we don't even really see a ghost for like the first hour.
And there's not even that many ghosts in this.
No.
I mean, you have like, I think his name is Muncher, which is kind of like their version of a Slimer character. There's that
was Josh Gad, by the way.
What?
Yep.
Just in paint. It wasn't CGI. It was just him on wires.
Well, I don't know. He may have like done some mocap. I'm not sure, but I stayed during the credits and I saw his name.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
There was like a miner. What was it? Like an old skeleton kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which bit of a callback to the...
So yeah, it was just kind of like, I mean, that's not a negative. It was just something I noticed. I'm like, there's actually not that many ghosts in this.
It's definitely a smaller scale movie than the original Ghostbusters for sure.
And I feel like, once again, it's like they looked at what went wrong with 2016 and they were like, okay, we got to take this down a notch, a little more grounded, less wacky.
Because when they were like doing kung fu ghost busting in the middle of Times Square with like hundreds of ghosts.
I do want to point out a couple negatives that I have before we move on.
Okay.
I know, Chris, you were saying it kind of fell apart a little bit for you in the third act. My biggest struggle with this movie was the entire first half. I was kind of bored. It was very, very slow. And it's not because there wasn't ghost action. It's just, I don't know. It was just, really they were taking time to establish these characters, which is good. Although I didn't find, aside from Phoebe, I didn't find most of the characters to be that deep anyway.
Yeah.
So it just,
Finn Wolfhard was not interesting. His character arc was I like a girl. And the mom's character arc was, well, she had a character arc of, I mean, there were things. She went on dates. She was estranged from her father. They learned things. But yeah, no, Finn Wolfhard did not, aside from like, I fixed the car.
I honestly think with a couple of minor rewrites, and for the record, I'm a Finn Wolfhard fan. I really like that kid, but with a couple of minor rewrites, you could take that character out of this movie, and the girl who he starts dating, played by Celeste O'Connor, could take them out, and you would have virtually the same film.
Yeah, it's just a bummer because, again, like the first Ghostbusters was about kind of like those four members, and there's other characters throughout, but like kind of their banter together really kind of made it, and it felt like this team. And then in this, again, it's like for the first half, it felt like mostly McKenna Grace's story. And then we get a little bit about the mom, but she's not really a part of the ghostbustingness. And then Finn Wolfhard has his own little subplot, but it never kind of came together like, here's this new team. For me, it never felt like here's this new team of Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
It was more like, here's McKenna Grace as Phoebe. Her brother tagged along with the love interest. And then the OG Ghostbusters. So it just felt like...
And podcast.
Podcast. I like podcast.
I liked podcast too. He was funny. He and McKenna Grace had really good chemistry.
Yeah. No. So I'm not saying that like they weren't there at all. It's just more like it never felt like here's the old team and here's the new team. It felt like here's the old team, McKenna Grace, and then just a couple of other stragglers. Does that make sense?
I kind of like it like that though, because I mean, in the all the other times they're like, well, we have to establish the team. We have to. This one was kind of like, here's the story, it's happening. People are going along for this adventure. Yeah. And I kind of like that they subverted that, because they could have easily made like, oh, we're four best friends. Oh, spooky. Like instead things kind of came together. I don't know what had happened with the group in the next film that I hope happens, but I liked it.
I can appreciate that. I can appreciate that. For me, though, I kind of understand what Chris is saying too. Just that, the end of the first movie and the end of the second movie, it's the four of them together, standing in a line, doing something together. Whereas here it's the three of them and McKenna Grace, and all the other characters play a part in the climax for sure. But yeah, it didn't feel like a new team. It didn't feel like It didn't feel like Finn Wolfhard's character was part of this team,
Yeah, no, I fully agree. They just didn't want to tell that kind of story, though, I guess.
Yeah, no, so it's not even me saying specifically I needed them to be a new team. It's just more that, like Court was saying, it felt like by the end of it, they didn't really have much to do, so why have them? It's almost like this subplot felt maybe a little superfluous because they didn't feel that important by the end of it.
I agree.
But I will say that I didn't mind the opening kind of being, or the first however long being a little slow, because I kind of missed that kind of 80s. It's not just 80s, but that old style of filmmaking where you really just kind of slowly introduce it. I remember, Red Letter Media was talking about the difference between the original Evil Dead and the remake of the Evil Dead, and I like the remake. I think it's fun. But they were talking about how the original it doesn't take long, but it does take maybe 10-ish, 15 minutes before anything even supernatural happens. But the remake, the very first scene is a prologue where it's like, there's blood and guts and everyone's on fire and they shoot someone's head off. And it just, one felt like, old school. The other one feels like modern sensibilities. Like you got to get them in quick. So like Court, I completely see what you're saying. I guess I was just more like, all right, take your time. We're kind of slowly grooving into this, even if I agree that I wasn't like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen with Finn Wolfhard and this girl. Like, I never.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Nobody gave a shit about that relationship.
Well, and I honestly, like, I didn't feel a whole lot of chemistry there either.
Yeah.
Like, I got way more chemistry between McKenna Grace and Logan Kim than I got between Finn Wolfhard and Celeste O'Connor.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't seen Celeste O'Connor in anything else. Have
I don't
you?
think I have either.
Okay, so I don't know if it was just like she's a little green still.
Well, I mean, I thought she was okay in the movie too, but
Yeah.
I did kind of appreciate that the movie didn't go full on romance. Like they kind of hint at it, and he's into her, but they never. I don't even think they even kiss in the movie or anything like that.
There's still kids. I mean, well, Finley Wolfhard's like a fucking adult at this point, but which is weird. But they still came across as kids, so I think it's fine to have like kind of still like cutesy relationship that's not too adult or too serious.
They called it puppy love.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness.
Exactly.
So I think a big thing. Actually, before we get to that, I want to say this. Another thing I liked about this, which is very, very different from the 2016 film, is that they did a lot of stuff practically, it seems, in this movie.
Yeah, I appreciated that.
The demon dogs come back. I can't remember if that's what they're actually called, but they come back and you can tell they weren't fully, I'm sure they probably touched them up with CG, but you could tell just by the way they moved. It was a callback or throwback to the original movie.
Yes.
I thought that looked really good.
Yeah.
So a lot of good practical stuff, because I said the non-spoiler, if you fully CGI'd it, there would be so much visual dissonance between this and the original. And because this is kind of a love letter to the original, that would have been weird.
I completely agree. I think that's a great point. And I also enjoyed that so much of it felt practical. And even like when they were hunting some ghosts or chasing after like Muncher, it was a lot of like Muncher was CGI and maybe like the beams were CGI, but it wasn't like they're on the CGI set and the buildings were falling down.
Yeah.
It was like, it felt very practical.
That was a fun little car chase too.
Yeah, no, it was.
Grounded in reality.
Exactly. Andris, I can imagine that you're always a fan of and supporter of practical effects.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But over the years, I have become an advocate for appropriate digital effects usage.
Yeah.
When you mix it up properly. And this film is definitely a good example of using the practical when it should be practical, digital when it should be digital, because you wouldn't have been able to do all the things they did with the State of Marshmallow Man, for example, practically.
Yeah.
That was fine.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I was going to say, speaking of which, how did you guys feel about the Marshmallow Men?
I was worried. The trailers really started featuring them heavily, and I was getting like Porg syndrome going back to Last Jedi, because I'm like, they're really featuring those heavily. But they were utilized fine.
Yeah, they weren't in it much. I just kind of felt like they could have done I think that was an opportunity to come up with something new.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we all know that the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, you know, that's iconic when it comes to Ghostbusters, but I think it would have been nice of like, you make something new, because I don't think anything in this, any new design of characters or
Muncher.
He's not
Muncher and the RC.
No, they're new, but what I'm saying is that like, Muncher to me just feels like a bit like Slimer. It doesn't.
Oh yeah.
What I mean by new is that it didn't feel like this is this brand new iconic kind of design. Yeah. And I feel like they could have maybe made the little marshmallow have the same sequence, but maybe make them something different than Marshmallow Men.
I didn't get the Marshmallow Men thing, because like mostly ghosts are supposed to be evil in these movies. They're generally presented as evil. So why do they manifest as cutesy little marshmallow? Like maybe I missed something. I don't know.
I don't know either. Did I miss why they were Marshmallow Men too?
No, it's never explained. My girlfriend also, we saw it together yesterday, and she was like, "Why did they use Marshmallow Men?" I'm like, because Gozer is a Sumerian god,
and the Sumerians loved marshmallows.
Yeah, see,
it's true.
In the first movie, I mean, part of the joke is that it was just this random thing that was it Ray? Is it?
Yeah, popped in his head.
Yeah, that's the joke, is that it manifested just whatever popped into his head. It's not like this is the iconic ghost form that people choose. I don't know.
By the way, I don't want to derail it, but really quickly, J. Edgar Hoover should have popped up. Venkman literally said J. Edgar Hoover will pop in your heads if you think about him right now. And he's
oh yeah.
That would have been a fun callback, that it's like it's more it's more subtle, not subtle, but just like, you know what I mean? Like it's not as like, the Marshmallow Man, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Who are you gonna call?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I left.
I did like I think we had heard going into this movie that there were a couple of pretty big name actors in here that they had managed to sort of keep quiet. And so we do see the corpse of Ivo Shandor, who we never saw in the original, but we know he was the architect of the building at the end of the film.
And if you've played the video game, which was great,
I played part of it. It was really good. Yeah.
He's the main baddie. So
Okay.
having him pop up here looking exactly the same was really nifty.
Okay. And it was J.K. Simmons.
Yeah,
that's cool.
That's not it. That's not all.
Okay.
Yeah, you had J.K. Simmons as Ivo Shandor, but then also Gozer was played by, going back to Tron Legacy, Olivia Wilde.
Yeah,
Olivia Wilde.
Really?
That was Olivia Wilde.
Oh, because
Is that wild?
That is wild. Literally,
That is wild.
No, because that's weird because I guess because I'd heard there were a couple, and I saw that it was J.K. Simmons, and then I saw Josh Gad. So I was like, okay, I guess that's who they mean.
Mhm.
But when Gozer came out, I was like, who is that? Like, is that somebody I know? Like, that would be a logical, that's the other big name in here. But I couldn't place the face because, of course, there's a lot of makeup and whatever.
And
Looked a
that
lot
flat
like the
top.
original Gozer, yeah.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, I think it's one of those things where it's like, it's a cameo, but it's a cameo brought on mostly because of like the striking resemblance and between like the original actress, at least in like facial features. Like once you put on the makeup and the hair and the costume, it is like, you know, because I wouldn't have put two and two together myself before the movie, but as I was watching it, I was like, who is that? Oh, that's Olivia Wilde. She does fucking look like the original woman. It's not like it's not like a one-to-one. It's not like completely identical, but again, it's just something about like the strong facial.
It got the job done.
Yeah, that's the thing.
It was cute. I like that.
I stayed through the credits and like there was a credit for Gozer, and I think it said something like Gozer performer. It was something very specific, and it was not Olivia Wilde. It was some name I did not recognize.
Probably the voice, whoever did the voice.
Oh, maybe that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Nah, she might be dead by now. The original Gozer overdub voice
wasn't that fucking old. Are you talking about the voice?
The voice.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the actress. I was like, holy shit.
No. Let's find out today.
Let's do it.
Talk amongst yourselves as I look it up.
Sure. So what else to say? Again, I like Paul Rudd in this movie. He was charming. It felt a bit random when the other Ghostbusters showed up, because I thought that they were gonna like pepper him in a little bit before the third act, but I don't know how you guys felt, but it really felt like they gave him a phone call to Ray, and then they just kind of like walked into frame, like, 20 minutes later, and I was like, oh, okay, they're just here now. I don't know.
I guess maybe maybe the conversation with Phoebe got Ray thinking and talking to the other guys. And I'll say this, one line that absolutely threw me for a loop was when Phoebe first called Ray and she's like, I need to talk about Egon Spengler. And then Ray goes, Egon Spengler can rot in hell. And I was like,
whoa,
what? That's
damn,
shots fired. Okay.
Yeah.
And they explain why Ray feels that way, but like that caught me off guard a little bit.
Yeah.
I will say I was kind of weirded out that Ray wasn't one of the people that believed what Egon was saying, because Ray was the one that bought into all the occult shit.
Yeah. Yeah, that was an odd choice.
Yeah.
No, it was not the same lady who did the original voice of Gozer.
Okay.
There is one thing I wanted to touch on real quick though. I've been reading reviews to see how people are reacting to this film so far. We're getting mixed reviews. Two things I'm seeing a lot, which I wanted to address, is a lot of people saying there's too much fan service, and then there's people saying that there's a lot of Easter eggs. I'm saying no to both. And the reason I'm saying that, it's not fan service because everything that's happening is happening in service to the plot. Except for the Marshmallow Men, sure, we can throw that away. But like, they're like, oh, well, Ivo Shandor pops. You're like, yeah, it's relevant to the plot. He was a Gozer worshiper. And then saying Easter eggs, you're like, no, Easter eggs are like R2-D2 being on like the hieroglyphs in the Ark of the Covenant in Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's not an Easter egg. And it's just frustrating me because it's like, don't No.
One thing I will say in defense of this is gonna sound weird, because I agree with what you're saying, but one thing I'll say in defense of the people that are saying Easter eggs is that apparently, and I've read this in a few reviews and listened to in a few reviews, apparently for critics who got like an early screening, there was a video recorded message from Jason Reitman himself, just like, welcome, thank you for seeing Ghostbusters. You're going to be watch the greatest Easter egg hunt in cinema history. Like he himself said that this movie, the intention part of it was to make it an Easter egg hunt of like little things in the background that you would notice.
Okay.
But so it is kind of Easter eggy, but I will say that's not an issue necessarily because there were things, I can't off the top of my head, but there were little things that I would notice, but the movie didn't call attention to a lot of it. Like if they have like a name in the background, or if you see something in like the store, whatever, I'm not going to get upset about that. So I don't think this was like Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker level of like, oh my God, there's just nothing new. But I don't know. What did you think, Court?
Yeah, I mean, it does, particularly in the third act, hit a lot of the same beats as for God's sakes, it's the original villain. One thing I do want to talk about, actually, I think it's the last big thing we mentioned off the top, but of course, Egon's ghost shows up at the end of this movie. Winston, Ray, and Peter, they show up to help fight Gozer, and they cross the streams, but it's not working. And then Phoebe comes in with another proton pack and blah, blah, blah. And she's like struggling to hold the thing. And then we pan up and Egon's ghost is there, like helping her hold it. And I know some people think it's really, really gross that they CGI'd Harold Ramis. Mm-hmm. It worked for me. I'm not gonna lie, I got a little bit choked up at the end. I rolled a couple tears at the end when he hugs his daughter, when he hugs Phoebe. Yeah. Like that really did it for me. And just to see him with the other three, when Ray turns to him and says, like, I'm sorry, I didn't believe you or whatever, like that got me, man.
Oh yeah, no, I thought it was completely tasteful. The entire movie was kind of a love letter to Harold Ramis, like, hey,
Well, I'm literally after that final shot, it pans up to the sky and it just says for Harold, and like, that was really nice.
It wasn't exploitive. It was tastefully done to like remember, because I mean, Harold Ramis didn't just act in the film; he rewrote the script. Yeah, because Dan Aykroyd's original script was not what we got on screen.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was because of Harold Ramis. So, I mean, he had such a huge hand in making this franchise what it is. But no, I'll admit it. I got choked up a bit. I could hear sniffling in the audience. It was really cathartic and a beautiful thing. Because, we love these movies, and it was very beautiful. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I didn't think it was exploitive at all. I know that they, were working with the relatives of Harold Ramis to kind of like to make sure that his portrayal was what the family wanted his legacy to be. Yeah. And I don't know. I think that like, sure, they're using CGI, but they're doing it in a way that just honors him. It's not making him like do a stupid chicken dance or anything. There's nothing embarrassing or upsetting about it. It's just like, hey, this guy was a huge part of this franchise, and this is our cinematic way of like saying thank you and we miss you.
Especially because, I mean, you look at the 2016 film, he got a bust in the background. Right? That was their tribute to him. So this really felt like they were like, okay, we really have to do this right because he deserves the send-off.
The only thing that didn't work about it for me, and I didn't care because I was like completely emotionally invested in the moment, but thinking about it later, like the fact that he didn't talk, and I understand you probably don't want to get an impersonator, although you could probably just get away with Ray Romano, but whatever. But like the fact that he didn't talk, I don't know. There were just a couple of moments where, he's reacting, but he's just kind of going like,
he could have said,
it felt like, a little bit weird.
Like just one word. I definitely agree with what you're saying. Cause it's like, okay, we get that you don't want to like make, but something just, Thanks.
No, I I thought that too.
Bye.
It kind of highlights that how kind of artificial it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it slightly took me out, where I was just like, oh, they're just using clips where he doesn't say anything and they don't want to use his voice because it might be jarring, but it makes it a little more like, to me, it made it stand out more of like, he's not here.
Yeah.
He's not
Right.
really there, but you know.
Yeah, it was a weird choice.
It actually reminded me, and this is this weird little quibble that I have with Man of Steel, but
Okay.
and I don't remember the movie even all that well, but when Clark finds the ship, which I guess functions as like the Fortress of Solitude, there's that, I guess, like AI of his dad, played by Russell Crowe, Jor-El.
Uh-huh.
And he's kind of like leading Clark through the ship to where they're going to have this conversation. But it's like, it's the most awkward, like Clark will turn a corner and then Jor will be standing there looking at him and he'll turn and walk into the next corridor. And then he has to, and he just keep, like, why are you fucking flirting with him? Just say, come over here.
Yeah.
Let's have a conversation. You're giving him
Meet me
bedroom
in
eyes. This is
this
weird.
room. Yeah, meet me
That's
in this
good.
room.
Yeah.
son.
So I got a little bit, not that Egon was flashing anybody bedroom eyes. I said that in jest, but I kind of got a similar, like, this is just a little bit awkward. I love what they're going for, and it's mostly really working. There's a little bit of weird awkwardness here.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
like 2 to 5% awkward in there. I agree.
Yeah, and it's because he's silent. Because just just no words, just staring at you. I'm like, what are you thinking, buddy? I don't. What's
Yeah,
going
Just
on
like
here?
nodding in approval. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
not just that, it's like they've established ghosts can make sound. So
Right.
it's like there's no rules against speaking.
Right.
But there
Not
is
a-
one
not a
more
big
thing.
Oh, go ahead.
There's one more thing I wanted to point out. I want to know what Winston's business is so bad.
I don't know. Did he mention a business?
Did you guys not see the post-credit scene?
I didn't stay for the last one. I was exhausted.
I saw the one
geez.
with Sigourney Weaver. I thought that was it.
No, there was another one after the credits. I'm not
Oh.
bullshitting, by the way. Like, this is
No,
legit.
I'm not. You could spoil it if you want. I've already seen the movie.
What happens is there's a post-credit. I know you've seen the movie.
I've seen
there's-
the movie.
Yeah, there's a post-credit scene where it's Janine and Winston are in Winston's office, and he's like, "Yeah, you know, I got this opportunity, and I invested my money, and I built up my business with everything that I got to do with the Ghostbusters, and I've been the one who's been taking care of paying for Ray's rent, and I do that for my friends." And then there's another shot afterward. Or as he's talking, it goes back to the old abandoned fireplace or firehouse, and it goes panning. It goes to the ghost ecto containment unit, and the red light starts flashing.
Oh no!
And then it fades out. And
Okay.
I'm just like, what is Winston's business? Because they never mention it. And the only thing they say is she's like, Janine's like, "Oh, you've got a lot of shelves on you. It's nice." And then he's like, "Well, it's my business."
Well,
And
his business is shelves.
yeah,
Well,
it's like
Apparently, in the credits, he's credited as Dr. Winston Zeddemore. So I guess at some point
cool.
he got a PhD in something.
There you go.
I mean, he could be anything though. He could be an engineer,
Right.
or a psychiatrist, or
A podiatrist.
a proctologist.
There you go.
These are the burning questions we have for the next one. Would you guys be interested in seeing a follow up to this specifically with McKenna Grace or returning characters?
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what direction they go, because I don't know if they're gonna become a new pack of Ghostbusters. I know McKenna Grace is obviously, her character will go on because she's interested in science, and this is a whole new opening for her. She's, she didn't believe in ghosts, and here it's like investing or inheriting her grandfather's work, because he was the one who was really, exploring this kind of research. It'll be interesting to see where it goes. But I don't know where they're gonna, like, are we gonna get to see Wolfhard working in the diner again, or
I
are
don't
we
know.
gonna?
We'll see.
I don't know. I'd be interested in seeing another one of these.
I'd check one out for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we should wrap up the show. We've gone a little bit long today.
That's all right.
Yeah. So, but I guess recommendations from all of us on Ghostbusters.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, of course, we want to thank you guys for watching. Before we go, Chris, where can people follow you online?
My Instagram handle is Art of Light and Shadow. It's just kind of a fun daily blog about films. I do a lot of rankings, a lot of community voting. It's a lot of fun if you're interested in movies, both old and new.
Andris?
If you do a YouTube search for Cheap Thrills Unspeakable Terror, you will find my videos. I do reviews of low-budget sci-fi and horror from the dawn of cinema to the modern era.
And you just put out a new one the other day, and I haven't watched it yet, so I got to go do that.
Ooh,
I did.
on my to-do list as well.
Enjoy.
And yeah, of course, you guys can follow me. I don't post that much, but you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Courtshake. Obviously, you're already on my YouTube channel, so if you haven't subscribed yet, I'd sure love you for it. As always, we want to encourage you guys to drop a like on this video, give it a share if you did enjoy it. Just helps to get the show out there, helps to grow the channel. It means a lot to us. And of course, jump into the comments. What did you think of Ghostbusters? Did you see King Richard? Are you looking forward to No Way Home? Jump into the comments. I will check them out. I will probably get back to you. So that's fun. Again, we want to encourage you guys to check out the audio only versions of our podcast at Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. That's all there. And we want to thank you guys for watching. And as always, we just want to say we're all in this together. Everybody stay safe, stay healthy, take care of each other, and we will see you guys next time.
Take
care, everybody.
Bye now.
Mass